Good day, this is Mr. Case, and today we're going to be looking at river valley civilizations, the first one being city-states in Mesopotamia. Now, looking at Mesopotamia, which is near Iran, Iraq area, we first have to look at the geography. And the big one is the Fertile Crescent. Fertile means rich and able to grow crops. Crescent, think of a croissant. In Burger King, you can get a croissant, which is like a sliver-shaped moon. And when we look at a map, you're going to see in the Fertile Crescent the area we're talking about. Remember that we're talking about an area in Southwest Asia with fertile land. And the word Mesopotamia is a Greek word meaning the land between the rivers. Meso, middle, pot, water. That's a Greek. So as the Greeks looked in Africa, bear with me, in Africa for hippopotamuses, they called them that because hippo is horse, pot means water. So again, Mesopotamia is the land between the rivers. Which ones? Well, we're looking at the Tigris and Euphrates. What's going to be important besides the water is the rich mud. Silt is that fertile or rich mud that is brought down from the mountain areas, the Zagros Mountains, into the rivers. So you've got water and rich soil that comes from the rivers. The problem was that the flooding was unpredictable. Farmers couldn't, with assurance, plant their crops early or late and figure that they may always have that water. So what they did is they had ditches off of the river that carried the water to the crops. That's what irrigation is. Instead of bringing crops to the water, they brought water to the crops. Taking a look at this map of Mesopotamia, right here, southern part, there's the city of Ur we talked about. Up the river is Babylon, and it goes all the way as a crescent-shaped object here. Water from the rivers, and then in this area, present-day Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, they had spring rains and fall rains. Plus they had the Sea of Galilee and the Jordan River. So agriculture was possible. The Sumerians created what was called city-states, which are independent, little independent kingdoms. They functioned on their own. They didn't worry about a huge area, but maybe 10, 15 miles in radius that they dominated, and they were independent from other cities. Priests were important. They were the go-betweens between the spirit world and the natural world. So farmers depended on the priests to ask the gods for a good harvest. So priests were your early rulers. Eventually, kings started to rule from a single family. Dad would rule, then junior, then grandson, and great-grandson on down the way. And that's called a dynasty. We see dynasties in sports like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, the New York Yankees. It's a series of successful families who rule. We have cultural diffusion, which is the idea that we spread one culture to another. We borrow the best of. Now, city-states were independent, but they did trade with each other, and they borrowed the best of each city as they came in contact with these other cities. Again, religion being important, and the Sumerians believed in many gods, thousands of gods. So the word polytheism is used here. Poly meaning many, the meaning God. When you study theology, you're studying God, the belief in many gods. And the Sumerians had an idea that the humans served the gods. Humans were nothing more than servants of the gods, and you wanted to appease or make happy the gods, so you gave offerings to the gods. There was a social hierarchy. You've got the wealthy and you got the poor, the great and the small. Women did have rights, but men were superior in that culture, and they ruled. We've unearthed cuneiform, which you remember is a type of writing in soft clay. They developed astronomy to know when to plant crops and to harvest. And they also had the medical arts. They were the first empire builders. And the first empire builder is Sargon of the city or region of Akkad. Now, that's about 2300 BC. That's 4,300 years ago. As he comes in and he defeats the Sumerians and he takes over, so he forms the first empire. And an empire is a regional control by many cultures, religions, languages, and people. They may not see eye to eye as the ruling group, but that's an empire. It does not last for a long period of time because of infighting, rebellions, invasions, and eventually famine. They couldn't feed everybody. Later on, we have another empire builder by the name of Hammurabi. You probably heard of his famous code of laws that unifies people in his empire. Now, I'm going to give some information here. His laws were not fair across the board, but they were the same across the board. I'll give you an example. You see various punishments for various crimes. That's okay. But here's the problem. It favored the wealthy people. It favored men. It favored noble folks rather than common folks. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Well, that's okay. Unless you happen to be superior, then you can just pay the person that you've aggrieved money. It just doesn't seem right. But it did unify people and held them together. Hammurabi's code becomes famous in that respect. And then finally, we see the government is responsible for order in society. Hammurabi believed it was the government's job to solve crimes. And if the crime wasn't solved, people would be paid money. It wasn't fair across the board. However, it did say that the government was responsible for order. Well, that's 2.1. This is Mr. K's. We'll see you down the road.